But we're gonna go ahead and jump into the session. So our first speaker today is a guy widely known here at NC State and even outside the university as well. Super well respected, super distinguished, and really is an honor to have him be able to come talk to you all. Before y'all joined the session today, we was giving him our general thank yous for doing this. And one of the things that really stuck out to me, he said is, no, this is my job as a researcher and doing research. So this is what I'm supposed to do, which is amazing. The guy who's speaking with us today, again, he is known outside of NC State. To wrap it up really quickly, he's pioneered research on social and ethnic dialects since the 1960s. So you all ever thought about like the way you talk and why you say things a certain way? Or people like me call me country because I talk really fast and slow my words. I'm like, nah, that's where I'm from. I'm from the 252. Or even how we say the word y'all, and some people don't. Earlier, me and Jackie was talking about how we say the word toboggan. To me, that's a hat or a beanie. To her, that's a sled. And I'm like, what is that? And that's the stuff that Walt kind of goes into a little bit. Kind of some of his research is about the way you talk and how it relates to your roots and who you are. And that's what his session is about today.
Did Justin just mute himself?
Yeah.
No, I didn't do it. They said someone muted me.
Oh.
And that's my cue to wrap up soon. Cool. So the last thing I want to say about him, again, he was doing research since the 1960s. During his time so far, he's published 23 books, 8 edited collections, and more than 300 articles. So my man definitely knows what he's talking about. It's going to be a fun, good time. At this point, I do want to turn it over to Mr. Walt Wolfram.
Okay, I'm going to share a screen for you here. So we should be good to go. And there we go. Okay, so I can see you. And we're going to go talk about language diversity in North Carolina. You know, when I came here in the 1990s, before you kids were born, I actually said, well, this is so cool. I'm going to North Carolina. It's sort of like dying and coming to dialect heaven, because there are so many cool dialects in North Carolina, which can be both a bad and a good thing. So why am I interested in language? Oh, let me just, sorry here. Let me just pull. Okay. So why am I interested in language? Why does language matter? Because as Justin was just saying, you know, lots of times people get judged on the way they talk. You know, I was at a wrestling match the other day, actually, and there were kids from Lumberton there. There were kids from Warren County there. There were kids from Eastern North Carolina. And man, it was just a total mix of dialects. I mean, they were focused on wrestling. But the fact of the matter is sometimes, and this is not right, and this is what I want to address, because it's a matter of social justice. Sometimes we judge people on the basis of their language, whereas we're getting much more sensitive to judging people on the basis of their race, creed, color, or gender. We still judge people on the basis of language, which is not the right thing. And actually, we even have a term for it, which is called linguistic profiling. Look at this little snippet here.
Hello. Yes. Can I ask a few questions about the apartment on Park Street?
What was your name?
My name is Juan Hernandez.
It's been rented.
Oh, it's gone. Hello, my name is Sanjay Kumar. I am calling about the apartment on Park Street.
It's not available.
Not available?
Hello, my name is Tyrone Washington. I'm calling about the apartment on Park Street.
Just been rented.
Hello, I am Chen Ling. My name is Khalid bin Ali. I'm Tuan Vo.
Hello, my name is Moshe Goldberg. I use a wheelchair.
It's gone. Not available. All right. Thank you.
Yes, hello, my name is Graham Wellington. I'm calling about the apartment for rent on Park Street. Is that still available?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Really?
Housing discrimination is illegal. If you think you've been a victim because of your race, color, national origin, sex, religion, disability, or family status, call us. Fair housing. It's not an option. It's the law.
Okay, but on the other hand, that's a case of linguistic prejudice and discrimination, which we refer to as linguistic profiling. It happens 6 to 20 million times a year, and people are turned down for apartments they're turned down for jobs, they're turned down for other things. So there's a negative aspect to sounding different. On the other hand, there's also a quite positive thing, and that this is how people identify where they come from, how they've developed, and what their history is. So this is how we identify ourselves, and it indexes our past, our present, and the future. So let's listen to this little clip.
I play a game when I'm working with students. I ask them to lower their eyes for a second and pretend they can't see me. Pretend I'm behind a screen and they're listening to me talk. And as they hear me talk, they can hear that I have a number of Southern features that they associate with upper or middle class in my voice, with the R's, the Ah's, and the G's. They'll hear that it's sort of Southern, but I talk too fast to be Deep South. I don't have that soft spread on bread from Savannah or some of the areas around in there. You can hear that I'm over 18. I've lost that beautiful breathless quality, that I am, we hope, under 80 because it's not thoroughly cracked. You can hear that I probably like the situation. I have some education. I like the speaker, and if you listen for another minute, you can hear me smile at you. You give away all of that every time you say anything. That's what an accent tells you.
Okay, so this is interesting. Actually, North Carolina State has a program in social linguistics, that is the study of language and its social context, where we have done sort of more than 3,000 interviews with residents across the state. These are different dialect regions that we've identified for North Carolina. We've studied almost 30 different communities, ranging from Roanoke Island, from Manteo to Murphy. We have studied the entire state, and as a matter of fact, we have the largest social linguistics faculty. We have 6 people where this is what they do for a living, and that is what they teach. And we have one of the strongest programs in the United States. And we have more interviews from North Carolina than any state has, and we have a more robust program. So this is something that we're committed to, that we do research on, with communities that are regional, Eastern versus Western, communities that are ethnically distinguished, whether it's Hispanic, Native American, whether it's African American. So all of these communities are the kinds of things we study. Now, sort of, as you know, sort of it's not something that stops at the boundaries of the state. I mean, dialects are not limited. So I just want to show you sort of how the things that we talk about here are things that are shared and come from neighboring states as well, just to sort of give you a perspective. But here's the aspect. One of the themes of North Carolina State is think and do. All right. And here's my perspective. If we do research on communities, if we have gained knowledge, then we have a duty to give back to these communities what they have given us and the general public. And so we're very committed. We're very committed to programs that inform the communities where we research, whether it's in Robeson County, whether it's in Halifax, whether it's in Caldwell, wherever it is, give back to these communities. Okay, so here's how we do this. All right, we do this by documentaries, oral histories. So, for example, we've now done 13 documentaries of different communities. We have exhibits. So, for example, if you go into the Pembroke Museum of the Lumbee, you'll see an exhibit that we've done on differences there used by Lumbee English speakers. If you go to Ocracoke and visit the museum, you'll see an exhibit there. We also write trade books, that is popular books, where we actually talk about these dialects that are written for non-specialists. So we have a book called Talking Tar Heel. We have about 4 or 5 of these books, one on the Lumbee, and one on the state, and so forth. All right. We also have a curriculum. You probably didn't study it, but in 8th grade, when you study the history of North Carolina, we developed a curriculum where you could study for 2 weeks the different dialects of North Carolina, because how can you understand the history of your state if you don't understand how people in different areas of the state speak and why they speak differently? We also have media and social media. So for example, we have a YouTube station, a YouTube channel that has had 16 million views and has almost 100 different, everything from streamed documentaries to episodes of various types. And then we also have an institutional program at NC State where we are very challenged and committed to addressing linguistic inequality. People don't think of linguistic inequality. And that even makes it more serious because people think of gender, they think of racial, they think of ethnicity, but they don't think about linguistic prejudice. And therefore, many institutions, including I have found at NC State, do have linguistic prejudice, and we're committed to fighting that. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a couple of things here that'll give you an idea of the kind of thing we do. So a couple of years ago, we produced a film called Talking Black in America, which was turned out to be a big hit. All right, it won an Emmy Award. This is our staff here, the advisors on the left and so forth, and there's a picture of me getting the Emmy Award and our crew on site. Our goal was to educate the public about the history, about the development, about the utility of African American. I'm going to just show you a couple of clips in here. You might find them interesting. This is just a short clip of what is African American language anyhow.
Yeah. Where you go, there's different lingo. I know for a fact there be people that come here from out of town, and I'll talk to them, and they'll be looking at me like, "What are you saying?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I mean, it's so mixed-mashing with the internet nowadays. Mm-hmm. Everybody's in everybody's neighborhood and stuff like that. So I know the lingo in New York, and they definitely know. Everybody know the lingo, down here.
What defines talking black?
Asking y'all.
Yeah. That's the real question to me, because talking black to me is an insult when you say you're talking black or you're talking white.
Yeah, that's
because I choose to pronounce my words. I'm not talking black. I'm totally black. I'm black.
Yeah.
So every word that comes out of my mouth is me talking.
Yeah, but
so I'm talking black.
But you're not talking black because you don't sound black while you're talking.
But what's sounding black?
Right, what is black?
And I'm offended by that. What do you mean I don't sound black? I'm black, so I sound just as black as you do.
There's no such thing.
Every race talks different, you know what I mean? If you go to, and we say it's geography, you go to Texas, they might say howdy. Like, say, hey, what's up?
Or, just because it's like we get a little credit.
Even though our culture has been the object of racist discrimination, it's also been embraced by American society as really being very cool, right? So black music, that's cool. Black slang, that's cool. Black swagger, black ethos, black style. American culture has not only embraced that, but it's exported it to other parts of the world. And so one of the things that, black people enjoy is the fact that so many Americans, whether explicitly or tacitly, recognize that our styles of speaking, our styles of dress, the way we dance, the music, the food, it's cool.
Okay, let me just show you another little clip that shows sort of how much variation there is in African American language. It's just not sort of one composite African American language, which is sort of would be kind of a stereotype, but in different regions there are different there are different sayings. For example, this is a little clip about sort of different greetings that folks have in different regions. Oh, sorry, here we go. Oh, sorry, here we go.
If I walk up to him, I say, what's up? I'm speaking. I'm saying, hey, how you doing? I ran into some guys from New York up there in the middle of here, and we're in a big Burger King getting something to eat. I'm standing in the line. They stand beside me. I was like, what's up? And he just turned to me like, what's up? You know, to them, what's up means, I'm like, no, I was speaking. I'm from Mississippi. Different places say things differently.
I'm in between Cali, St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, Philly, New York. You'll get a different greeting, and that's just the start. I can go down to Atlanta and say, you know, what it do? Detroit, what up, though? New York, what's up, son? Cali, what up, blood?
I'm from a place where we don't use the dialect that I use here, but I'm able to maneuver with it. So you might hear, what up, shorty? What up, though? You know, and I'll just give them something that I have from Detroit. It'd be like, what up, shorty? I'd be like, what up, though? Or if you go to New Orleans and say, well, hey, Walty. The language gives you access and it'll give you a barrier. So the best thing to do is use it for your access.
Okay, so that just sort of gives you an idea of how varied the greetings can be, and some of it can have significance. Here's the point that we're trying to make, that these are legitimate languages. They have patterns. They're every bit as useful as the standard varieties they teach us in school. They just do not have the sort of prestige. But it's not about the language per se. It's about the people who speak the language. And so one of the things we're trying to do is sort of let people understand where African-American language comes from. As a matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, we're going to Ghana to trace the roots of African-American language. But I want you to see this short clip that just gives a little bit of the history.
Slave descendants have a unique linguistic heritage in comparison to every other immigrant group that came to this country. African slaves, when they were captured, were often isolated linguistically from others that spoke their own mother tongue while they were on the west coast of Africa. That linguistic isolation was also maintained on the ships during the Atlantic crossing. And as a result of that, not one indigenous African language has survived the Atlantic crossing intact. Once they got here, it was illegal to teach them to read and write. For hundreds of years, slaves were denied access to education. And as a result of that, many of the linguistic stereotypes, many of the negative linguistic stereotypes that people embrace regarding African American English, dismissing it as, you know, the language of someone who's being lazy or not attending to language, doesn't fully appreciate the linguistic isolation that slave descendants experienced is unlike anything of any other immigrant group in this country.
When they were brought here, African Americans were segregated into plantations. That's what happened in the Caribbean also. And what they did was to invent new languages, new varieties, taking linguistic properties from the surrounding varieties and creating new forms. These are creations of people put in an absolutely horrible set of circumstances. And out of that milieu came new language forms.
Okay, so I'm going to skip this one, but one of the things that I want folks to understand is the richness of these language varieties. You know, the skills that people have when they use them, that they may not be valued in school or other institutions, but they're highly valued in life, and people can be very poetic and creative with them, as we see in this little venue.
6 feet, that's 2 chains. Call your girl, she hit me back like you rang. I'm the hottest thing you sang. Mental institutions asking me, is you saying?
You basic dude, you tripping. Lace your shoes, think again, deja vu. Play with me, you play to lose. Call your homies, they be the bravest fools. I mean, take the clues.
An individual's ability to speak spontaneously, authoritatively, in the vernacular is not only highly prized, but is literally used in verbal combat
When you finish round one, boy, you cast a stone. Look at the crowd, they eyes glued like they got lashes on in the draft zone. I'm with some mean boys, run up deep in the Jaheim voice. While you at the crib with your son watching Nickelodeon Teen Choice. You often throw a lot of negative shots at each other, and they're not necessarily genuine.
Your mama joke, your cousin, there's no boundaries, I've heard all the type of jokes, all the type of like direct blazes on somebody might call it blaze, and it didn't have to be like, I hate you and boom, it's just, we just battled with words,
It's as much about the language itself and the connections that are being made as it is about like how the language, like how it's being delivered.
In Maryland, aiming at barrel, you rolling the flame, torching the game. Victor and here again, then I'll appear again dead.
As much slang as we use in hip hop, there are probably more people that would have been English majors or writers in hip hop than there is in any other genre. Just the usage of words like metaphors, similes, double entendres, triple entendres. You might not even have a high school diploma and you know how to use these things.
When you're in a situation where people don't own property, unemployment is high, you don't really have anything, but talk is plentiful. It's very natural that you end up in a situation where there becomes a hierarchy based on how adept you are with using language.
Okay, so we're going to stop there. But I want to introduce you something that you may not have thought about. Just like there's an African-American language, which is different from lots of white speakers. I'm not saying sort of like there isn't a lot of overlap, but there's also a Black Sign Language, which is distinct because of the history of segregation and so forth. And we just did a film, which we aired on television, called Signing Black in America. And I'm just going to show you the trailer of that, which is now up for an Emmy Award, just to show you sort of what that looks like.
In some cases, some people may feel like the things that they're saying, regardless if it's considered, improper English.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Sorry, here's the one I wanted.
There was a sense that this thing is there and nobody's looked at it and nobody has seen what it's made of and what its history is. It's not so hidden anymore.
A long time ago, people thought that ASL wasn't a real language. Today, we're still struggling to prove that Black ASL is real too.
There's a reason why it exists, why it continues to exist, and why it's important that it continue to exist.
That's my culture. That's our Black ASL. That's our sense of identity. That's where I belong.
That last guy, maybe some of you saw the Super Bowl. He interpreted the Star Spangled Banner and God Bless America, and became a sensation for his interpretation. He's a part of the film. He's an actor and pretty well known. So okay, so that's one dimension. There are so many dimensions, and I can't obviously in the time that I have. I can't explain all of them, but I thought that for another sample, I thought that I would talk about Lumbee English, all right? North Carolina has a rich heritage of Native American varieties, which are completely different language families. As a matter of fact, North Carolina has as much diversity historically in American Indian language as any state in the United States. It's really rather incredible. And so we've studied several of these varieties. Of course, some of them were removed during the Indian Removal Act, the infamous Trail of Tears. But one of the studies that we have, one of the things we were looking at is, so what is the state of Native American languages and also dialects of English in American society? So what roles do ancestral languages, heritage language, contact languages, and what's the role of language and dialect in Native American cultural identity? So in that respect, we spent a lot of time and interviewed about 150 people from Robeson County, all right? you know where Robeson County is, right along I-95, going down right by the South Carolina border there. So there's the largest interstate highway going through. So what's the cultural context of this? Okay, first of all, the first Americans encountered Indians living there speaking English in the mid 1700s, and there are currently about 45,000 Lumbee in Robeson County. All right. Now there's been a really interesting tri-ethnic situation because Lumbees are the largest population of Robeson County. European Americans at 35% and African Americans. So naturally we've studied all different groups to see how they sound. Okay. Now the enrollment status of Lumbee tends to be sort of a localized. So if you maintain contact with the tribe, if you have one of those names like Locklear, Oxendine, and so forth, here's an interesting fact. Lumbees were the first tribe to be recognized by the state of North Carolina in 1888. At the same time, they've been trying to get complete federal recognition for as long as they've existed, and their time after time they've been denied. All right, and so this is really interesting. And even the last attempt has now closed, and they have to start a new one. So since 1956, when they were originally recognized, but without any entitlements, which means they get no money from the federal government, no land or anything else. All right, it's been a struggle. But the thing is, here's what people say about their language.
I said, well, that's how we recognize who we are. You know, not only by looking at someone, we notice who we are by our language. You recognize someone is from Spain because they speak Spanish, or from France because they speak French. I said, and that's how we recognize Lumbees. If we're anywhere in the country and hear ourselves speak, we know exactly who we are.
Okay, so these are just the statements. Now, notice that's how we recognize who we are, by our dialect. If we're anywhere in the country and hear ourselves speak, we know exactly who we are. So we actually ran a test a few years ago to see if people could actually identify speakers. I don't know if I have time, but I'll just give you a couple of speakers and you can see. Identify whether they're Lumbee, Indian, whether they're black, or whether they're white. Okay, just let me play a couple here.
Identify the ethnicity. Speaker number 1.
He says, you needs a wife. He says, there's your wife. Set you downside of your good wife, him. He had been annoying me for a while, this guy to him. And so, from then on, I went to trying to look after fixing him a meal and doing for him.
Lumbee female from Robeson County.
Okay, next one.
Speaker number 2.
I believe we were thinking about cutting hair. And we had went in the back room because Mama had told us not to do it. And we had got the clippers out of, I blew them in my dad's room in his drawer. So I got the clippers and went in the other end of the house. And I started cutting on his hair. I cut on the back of it around here. I still remember that day I cut his hair.
African American male from Robeson County.
So that gives you an idea. I don't have time to play all 6, but you'll have it. Now here's what we did. So we asked speakers from Robeson County to identify these. We had 16 speakers, all right? And then we asked people from Raleigh. And here's the significant contrast. Actually, 81% of the people from Robeson County could accurately identify the Lumbee. 38% from Raleigh, which means since they have 3 choices, it's kind of a random choice, all right? So what we see is that when Lumbees talk about being recognized by their voice to one another, they definitely can. But people from the outside don't necessarily make the same assessment of them, which is really an interesting thing because the same speakers from Raleigh and Robeson County make the same assessments, and they're much alike in terms of identifying black and white speakers. Okay, so I just want to. Here's the interesting thing, that dialect status was part of their federal recognition. when they were acknowledged by an act of Congress in 1956, it said, whereas by reason of tribal legend, coupled with a distinct appearance and manner of speech, they weren't talking about a native language, they were talking about Lumbee English. And that's one of the bases for their identification. Here's the problem with this situation, and I'm going to stop in 1 or 2 more minutes. I just want to play you one more thing. It ended up in what I call a double jeopardy, okay? So here's what happened. They lost their Native American language or languages because of Europeans coming into the area, all right? And now their dialect is subjected to the principle of linguistic subordination, since it's simply dismissed as bad English. It's not bad English. It's different English. It's as good as any other language. It's just that the native Lumbee are not considered as equal to others and therefore their language. So it's never about language. It's who speaks the language that really makes the difference. So what we see is that Lumbee identity is strongly localized. People from the region recognize it. And it's also a cultural other. They're neither white nor black. They're Lumbee, and they're distinctly Lumbee. So actually, I just want to follow this one up, finish this up, and then I'm going to open it up for some questions with this little speech.
Uncle Sam says we speak no native language. He says we do not live in a traditional way. Therefore, we cannot be Indian. I say for centuries, his ancestors made speaking our native language against the law, made practicing our traditions punishable by him. For this reason, many of our languages have died. Many of our own people know nothing of their culture and history. But the Indian blood runs thick and strong through our veins. We are Native Americans, Indian by birth.
Okay, so that I'm going to stop my share here, all right? And so we can open it up. So these are just 2 of the situations. We also have a film on Spanish in the Southeast. We have a film on the Cherokee language, which is a very different sort of situation. We have 13 films, and so I apologize that I've only highlighted 2, but these are 2 of the groups represented by your group, and I wanted you to get an idea. But we're also open to sort of questions. I don't know their chats if anybody wants to lead this, but you can ask me any question that you have about anything, well, related to language, and I'll answer it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Wolfram. So yeah, we can open it up to any questions that you may have. If you want to drop them in the chat, I can read them out loud, or if you want to unmute yourself, we'll allow for y'all to do so. I would just ask that you use the little raise hand feature if you do want to unmute yourself, and then we can let you speak. But if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat and I can help facilitate that. All right, so we have a question that has come in. So how is African American language different from AAVE?
That's a really good question. Okay, I'll tell you why. AAVE is African American Vernacular English. Okay, that's what that stands for. So why do we call it African American language? Okay, actually, they're terms for the same thing, but here's the difference. When you refer to a dialect, it tends to have less status. When you tend to a language, so what's the difference between a language and a dialect? It's not all that clear. As someone said, a language is a dialect with an army. So it's kind of a political question. And so the leading scholars, the Black scholars, decided that language actually admits different dialects. Remember, the first the greetings, where I show different greetings at different parts of the United States. Well, one of the things that indicates is that there's regionality in African American language too. So African American language, like other languages, has different dialects, and language allows for that kind of diversity. But it's a very good question. Thank you.